All right, what's up, everybody? I'm going to show you how to complete this coding basics assignment in EduBlocks. It's pretty straightforward, especially if you have the necessary background in Python. But if not, hopefully this instructions will teach you a little bit and make sense of it for you. Okay, so it's in EduBlocks. We need to start out by opening up our EduBlocks, which is the free online Python editor. So I'm going to open up a new tab here. We're going to go to apps.edublocks.org/editor. So this is like the main screen here. We are going to edit in Python. So we'll click Python 3. Let's go ahead and go down here. We're going to rename the project. It's Coding Basics Review Assignment. So that's what we'll call it, Coding Basics Review Assignment, and we'll click Start Coding. Once we get to this point, it's the start code here. I will have another video where I explain kind of the basics of everything we're going to use here today. But for now, I'm just going to go right into it. So if anything is you're unsure about, please watch that video as well, and it'll explain how to or why I chose some of the techniques I did here and kind of how this works. All right, so first off, it asks you to create a code in EduBlocks that asks the user how many brothers they have, and then add to your code a question that asks the user how many sisters they have. All right, so we are going to create a create variable. We'll call it brothers. We're going to create another variable, and we'll call that sisters. And then we want to ask the user to input the number of brothers and the number of sisters they have. So let me drag this, and you drag it goes right into the editor. I can drag this here, clip it. We're going to say brothers, and then I'm going to repeat the process, drag this here, and we'll call it sisters. It asks the users how many you want to ask the user how many brothers they have. So we want to prompt with an input prompt so the user will actually type in that number. So to do that, I can go to statements. I can go to input, and then I'm just going to drag it onto my editor, but clip it right here. And so you can see with the code, it says brothers, whatever the variable brothers is going to take an input. It's going to ask the question on the computer screen, what is your name? And it's going to give you a chance to type it in. Whatever you type in, it's going to take it as an input and store it into the variable called brothers. So instead of what is your name, we're going to say how many brothers do you have? All right, and then we'll repeat the process with sisters. I can do it an easier way. If I right click, I can duplicate just that input, put it right here, and then say how many sisters do you have? And it'll do the same thing, right? It should output the question, how many sisters you have, wait for the user to type in an input, whatever they put in, it'll store it into the variable called sisters that we can use later. Next, it says combine those two values to create a new variable called siblings. Okay, cool. So we need to create a new variable. We're going to call it siblings. Here we go. And we want siblings to combine those two things. So siblings is going to equal, we can use this block right here, even though it's quotes and it's going to ask for like specifics, we could use that. Or we can use the math one, which is like truly adding. Either one of these should work here, but this one is more meant with quotes, like for words, like to combine, concatenate, like this word plus this word together. So I'm going to use the math one because we are technically doing math. Although either one should work. I haven't tested both, but I'm pretty sure they do. So siblings equals, and the number of siblings should be your number of brothers plus your number of sisters. So we'll go to variables, we'll use brothers, plop that inside that little thing. Be careful, it's kind of tricky. You want to make sure it does drop into the right spot. And then brothers plus sisters there. And there we go. So now we have a variable called siblings that adds the brothers and sisters together. But I want you to be careful. Remember from the previous video or the review that whenever Python takes an input, it always takes it as a string, words, but we wanted to treat it like numbers. If you ran this, it would not give you what you think it would. Let's try it. Let me show you what this looks like. So if I want to print, so let's print out the number of siblings. It should be the number of brothers plus the number of sisters, right? So variables, siblings, and then I'll put this over here. If I run this, how many brothers do you have? Let's say I have 4. How many sisters do you have? Let's say I have 6. When I hit enter, it should output 10, right? But it outputs 4 and 6 together. 4 plus 6. It just smashes them together. That's called concatenation. We don't want that. We want it to actually add them as numbers. The reason it does that is because it treats both of those like words. So it just takes the word 4 and puts it next to the word 6 and makes a sentence out of it or something. We don't want that. We want numbers. So to do that, we need to wrap the input as an integer, like tell Python, hey, we want you to treat this like an integer. So statements, and then this int right here. I'm going to make 2 of them because I'm going to need one for each. And then I can put it here, and I can put it here, and then replace those back. Oh, let me stop this. So you can say this now, or you can see now this says take the number of, oops, I switched them. There we go. Take the number of brothers you have, take that number in, but save it as a number, as an integer in brothers. So if I run this, how many brothers do you have? Yeah, again, let's say 4. Oh, clicked out of that. 4. How many sisters do you have? 6. And it's actually going to add the number 4 plus the number 6 and output that, as you can see here, number 10. So that works well. And I think that does what we needed to do. So next we need to actually output the phrase. Your total number of siblings is, and that number. We don't just want to print the number, we want to output the phrase. Okay, so let's do that next. To print words and variables, we want to use the and statement again. And is kind of a tricky thing. When it's 2 words, it concatenates the word or the words or sentences together and makes it one long sentence. When it's 2 numbers, it adds it like normal. So that plus sign is a little tricky. So you can see here, print something plus siblings. And so the something I wanted to say is right here. Your total number of siblings is, and so I'm just going to copy that and paste it in there. So your total number of siblings is, and then it's going to output the siblings. But there's going to give you another error here. If I run this 4, 6, it says you cannot concatenate, you can't add 2 different data types. You can't add a word, a string, plus an integer, a number. So the reason is because what we did here is we turned these into numbers, which then turns this into a number. So here you're taking this word and adding it to this number. Python doesn't understand that. So it's a little tricky, but we're going to have to convert this siblings back into a word in order to be able to print it out. So we're going to wrap it in the string function. There we go. Your total number of siblings is, and then it should work well, siblings, boom. And we'll run it in a second just to check. Okay. So next we're going to we're going to create a list with 5 names. All right. So in order to create a list with 5 names, we want to use the lists, obviously, right here, list, my list. Let's drag it out. You can see right now there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we want 5 names. So let's say Andy, Bob, Chris. I'm just going alphabetical, A, B, C. Um, Dave and Edgar. Notice that because they're strings, because they're words, I have to wrap them in quotes. A single quote or a double quote works, but now we have the list of things, or names, sorry, not things, they're names. Next, ask the user what position they want to choose. So do we want the first person, second, third, fourth, or fifth person? That's a simple input statement as well, wrapped in the integer. So I'll just make a copy of this whole thing. Duplicate. There we go. I need to make a new variable. Here, I'll just look at the blocks for a second. I need to make a new variable. So to do that, we'll call it create variable. We'll call it position. And if I go back here, I can select position now. Notice I could have created it right here too. Probably easier, but whatever. I did it the other way. So position. So this is going to say, this is going to ask the user, what person do you want? 1 through 5. The user is going to input a number between 1 and 5. It's going to turn it to an integer and it's going to store it in the position. That's this part right here. And then finally, make a call to the list to output the position that the user requested. All right, so to do a call to a list, we do statement, we do print variable, and we want to print out the list, right? So the list with the bracket around the number that they chose. They chose position, so variable position. So if they chose number 3, this tells you to go to the list and the brackets tell you to go to the 3rd position. Now be careful. This is where another trick lands. Remember that lists are 0 indexed. If you're not sure what that means, let me explain it. It means the first entry in the list is position 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there's 5 things in the list, but this first thing is in position 0, then position 1, then position 2, then 3, then 4. So the positions is always one less. The index for the position is always one less than the actual position number. So we don't just want the position down here. We want, like, if they chose 5, well, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 doesn't exist. It would be an error. We want to subtract 1 from that. Whatever number they pick, we have to subtract 1, since we normally count starting at 1, but lists start counting at 0. Okay, so we're going to go back to our handy dandy math. We're going to go here and we're going to do position minus 1. Okay, so now whatever number they put in, like let's say they want the person in the first position, which is really the 0 index. If they type in a 1, it'll go 1 minus 1, which makes 0. So it's the 0 entry into the list. It's this right here. All right, if that is kind of sticking you up, then you can let me know or leave a message in the comments, and I can kind of explain it a little better. Okay, so let's try it. Let's run this. How many brothers do you have? Let's say I have 4. How many sisters do you have? Let's say I have 6. Your total number of siblings is 10. That works perfectly. What person do you want? Let's say I want the first person, right? The first person, which is Andy. If I put in a 1, it prints out Andy because it subtracted 1. Cool. Looks like it runs great. Let's do a little error analysis here or error check. Let's see if we can make it work. How many brothers do you have? Let's say I type in like an X. Invalid literal for int with base 10. So basically it says I can't put an X in there. Good. That's good. It's giving me an error. That's what I want. Let's test the list. Okay. So 4, 6, 10. Let's say I want person 8. Boom. Index error. List index out of range. The number I put is too big for my list. Looks like it works great. So we have a code that does everything I want. This is perfect. Um, if we were going to make this a little better, the only thing I would do is maybe like throw like some loops in there or something and warn the user if they type in like a word here instead of a number, a word here instead of a number, anything that comes up like that. But that's completely not necessary for this assignment. This is just kind of basics of input, output, and list comprehension. So remember the big takeaways here is Python always takes in for the input a string, a word. So you have to convert it if you want it to be a number by wrapping it in the int function. When you use the plus sign, both sides of the plus sign must be the same data type. For example, a string here, and here we had to convert it to a string, or here is a number plus a number. So if it's two numbers, it adds it like normal. If it's a number or two words, it concatenates them or puts this word in front of this word or this phrase in front of this phrase and just makes it a longer sentence. But they have to always be the same. Finally, the last takeaway is when we create lists, remember lists are index of 0. So the first thing in the list is in the 0th position, then the 1 position, 2 position, 3 position, and so on. All right. Hopefully that helps answer some questions and clarify some things that you were wondering about. If you have any questions on EduBlocks or you have any questions on this program, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, have a great day.